to join us. Welcome to everybody who's joined us for How to Beat a Crowded Market. Really pleased to see you guys here today. I'm going to be talking through the content, and my co-host Hannah is going to be pressing the buttons and generally doing everything that I forget to do, such as hit record. So as an introduction, I know I've seen on the attendee list, I've got a few friendly faces there that already know me, but for those who don't, my name's Emma. I'm founder of Genius, the original Genius at Genius. We are a multi-award winning creative and marketing agency, primarily focused on B2B. So you didn't come here to hear me rabbit about us. You came here to learn some stuff. There's two phases of what we're going to do today. I've split it up into the prep work, which is the stuff that we need to do before we start putting metaphorical pen to paper. And then there's the stuff around actually shaping campaign messaging. So this first section where we do the sort of preparatory work, that's going to be, it's quite a lot, and it's quite in depth and it's quite detailed. But what it's going to do is mean that once we get to actually doing our creative, our messaging, that life is a lot simpler, and we're far more effective. So let's start with our little look at the typical buyer persona. So when we receive buyer personas from clients, what we typically get is Mandy's a 30-something marketing manager for an SME in the UK, and that's about it. That's who we're targeting. We're targeting marketing managers at SMEs in the UK. If I'm really lucky, I might get Mandy works in the finance sector. And sometimes I get informed that Mandy likes nothing better than a Thai takeaway with her partner on a Friday night. But I have absolutely zero clue why this is important. Most buyer personas are at best incomplete, and in many cases completely incorrect. And there's a few kind of issues with this. So buyer personas in their nature get you to make generalizations about your audience. That is inherently risky in that we can't really necessarily always group people together all the time. It doesn't, what's true for me as a marketer might not be true for Hannah as a marketer. However, we have to do it in order to create the persona. It means that when we make generalizations, we have to make sure that those generalizations are actually genuinely true for the majority. The other thing that buyer personas tend to have in common is that they're so big and so broad that they could really apply to absolutely anybody. And my challenge for you today is, if you're looking at your current buyer persona and you think, actually, if I got headhunted by my nearest competitor, I could just take this with me, then my thought to you is that it's not good enough. Your buyer persona should be so specific that it only works in the organization you're in now. So what do we really need to know? Now, Mandy's hiding. Mandy's hiding behind her industry. She's hiding behind her job title. She's even hiding behind her alleged love of Thai food. What we really need to know about Mandy is the stuff she doesn't want us to know. What are her hopes and dreams? What's she scared of? What makes her wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat? What's she really looking for? And it's not our product, FYI. We really need to understand about these people. Who are they really? What do they really think? What do they really feel? And what do they actually say? What kind of language do they use when they say it? Now, reason for that is I'm going to present the birthday present challenge. Think about the last time you bought a birthday present for your best friend. It's probably pretty easy, right? You know exactly what to get them, you know exactly what's going to float their boat. How about if I asked you to buy one for me? I can pretty much guarantee that most of you on this call would make an absolute horlicks of it, because you just don't know me well enough. And this is very true when we're trying to match our solutions to our customers. If we don't know them really, really well, what we're going to give them is something that they really don't want. and therefore they're not going to buy it. So what should really be in a buyer persona? This is probably going to cause some people to have a complete heart attack, but there we go. Here is our buyer persona mega list. This is everything we need to know about our target audience. There's stuff in there that's probably quite familiar to you. Demographics, firmographics, fairly easy stuff to put in. Tends to be the top level stuff you get. It's Mandy, she's marketing manager at a UK SME. That's easy stuff to work out. But then we get into the more interesting stuff. What kind of behaviors does Mandy have? How does she typically behave? What kind of actions does she take, either occasionally, on a day-to-day basis, when she's looking for a solution like ours? What sort of personality does she have, typically? And again, this is where generalizations are a little bit scary, because you're not necessarily always going to get this bit bang on, but certain role types and certain sectors particularly attract certain personality types. There are some generalizations you can make. What interests does Mandy have? So, not necessarily just her kind of, I don't know, whatever it is, a crochet hobby. What we're talking about is real, what sort of stuff is she really interested in at work when she's in the market to purchase your particular product or service? What sort of stuff gets her out of bed in the morning and makes her think, oh yeah, that's cool, I would actually do something about that? We want to get to what language she typically uses, and this might be industry jargon, or it might be more the way that she would phrase her particular hopes, dreams, challenges, problems. And that leads us into the next section. So we need to know what her goals are. Now, on one level, this might be the goals that she has been set by her organization. Absolutely fine to have those in there, but the goals that I'm really interested in, the goals that are really going to get me to the point where Mandy wants to buy from me, are the goals that Mandy sets herself. If she's a 30-something marketing manager, has she got it on her slate that she wants to be a CMO by the time she's 40? Does she want to be able to afford to take her whole family to the Caribbean? What are the goals that are important to her personally? They are a far more important motivator than the goals that she set by her organization, because she will only buy into the goals that she set by her organization to the degree that she thinks they will deliver on her personal goals, because we are all pretty much by nature selfish. Sometimes this is not necessarily true. You do get people kind of very bought into the purpose of their organization if their organization does something particularly good, but for the vast majority of B2B buyers who are working in normal companies that do fairly normal things, their engagement with company goals really only reflects their, how they feel like those goals might positively benefit them. Challenges and problems, on the other hand, generally in the world of the B2B marketer, we're going to struggle with personal challenges and problems. If Mandy's going out with an idiot and her relationship sucks, I can't really do a lot about that, but I can deal with her work challenges and problems if I really understand them. What sort of typical objections is Mandy going to come up with when I'm trying to sell her what I'm trying to sell her? What's the things that are immediately going to trip off her tongue as to reasons why she's not going to do what I want her to do? What are her deepest, darkest fears? And again, this comes back into people don't generally have work fears in the conventional sense in the same way that they have work goals. I have yet to trip across a corporation that officially documents its fears as such. They're usually phrased as risks and mitigated to a reasonable degree. But on a personal level, Mandy's got some real fears, and we need to understand what they are. Are they being passed over for promotion constantly, and whilst all her friends climb the career ladder? Are they redundancy, because that would mean that she couldn't pay her mortgage? We need to really understand what rubbish looks like for Mandy as well as what good looks like. We need to understand her role. What does she actually do? What's she responsible for? and what is our role in it. So the reason that we do this is to understand the big picture of what somebody's doing. So if somebody's got a job and they're putting in 100% of their effort, that's not they're giving us 100% of their effort. They're only going to give us the percentage that we fit into. So for instance, Mandy's a marketing manager. Maybe she has to manage agencies, printers, web companies. There's various tech. There's a lot of different things going on in her world. I need to figure out what's my role in that world. How can I make her role easier, and what percentage of her attention can I expect based on my place in her world? Need to understand her buying decision process. So, in some instances that will be very easy in that it would be several steps completed by an individual. Maybe they research solutions, maybe they reach out to a few vendors and then make their selection. Often that's a lot more complicated. There are many people involved. There are many different steps. We really need to understand what that looks like so that when we are putting together our messaging and our creative, we are not saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, and that we're actually supporting that buying decision process. We're making it easier for all the people involved to move through the stages and to get to the point where they choose us. Triggers for change. This is a really important one to understand, because not everybody's going to be in a position to buy our stuff every day, and unless we're selling something like, lipstick or washing powder, there's usually a real trigger that drives the change in behavior that says, okay, right, we need to do something about this now. We're prepared to look for solutions. Related to that, we need to understand how Mandy feels about different solutions, because if we don't know how Mandy feels about our competitive landscape, we're really going to start to struggle to communicate with her. Because if she particularly likes a particular way of doing things, if she likes solutions that work in a particular way, we need to understand that and understand how we fit with that. When you're looking at your competition, it's important not just to evaluate your direct competition, look at other ways to fix the problem that you're fixing. So it might be, like a classic that everyone thought was going to sink the ship for agencies was when Canva was launched. It's like, oh my goodness, there's a real user-friendly design tool. Nobody's ever going to use an agency ever again. We're all going to die. Well, clearly hasn't happened. But it's important that at the time that we were looking at it, that we weren't just looking at other agencies as our competition, that actually DIY was one of our biggest competitions, because people were being given the tools to be able to do stuff themselves. What resources does Mandy trust? We need to know where she goes for information, where she'll really lean in and go, yeah, I'll listen to what they say. We need to know where she can be found. I'm sure I know a lot of you on the call are marketers, so you know how damn busy you are. You don't spend a huge amount of time anywhere other than at your desk doing your job. So figuring out where we can actually get a bit of headspace and a bit of time with you, absolutely critical. Need to know likes and dislikes. And now this isn't necessarily just about how they feel about the solution, but more about kind of generalizations. Like if you're dealing with an audience that are particularly logical and analytical, they're very much going to like step by step and evidence and lots of detail. Whereas on the flip side, if you get the kind of the polar opposite personality type to that, they're going to drown in detail. And if you sort of drown them in stats and numbers and process, you're going to give them nightmares and turn them off. So it's important that we understand those two things about that persona, the kind of things that are going to turn them on and turn them off, not necessarily just about our product, but about communication generally. And then finally, don't put in personal preferences just for the sake of putting in personal preferences. Like, by all means, tell me that Mandy's got 2 chihuahuas and goes to bingo on a Thursday if it means something. Now, for us with our buyer persona, one thing I always look for in a prospective client is, do they like animals and or children? And that's part of my buyer persona, but there's a reason for it. It's not just because I think it's kind of, like my buyer persona like that's just a cool thing that I added in to make them sound more human. It's really important to me because it's an indicator of the kind of person they are. The kind of people who have time for things that are dependent are the kind of people who work well with my team. So we've got a lot of stuff we need to find out here. A lot of stuff. How are we going to find it out? It's got to come straight from the horse's mouth. We cannot get this information from anybody other than the customer themselves. Now, it's very, very easy to go, oh God, I don't really want to talk to my customers. I'll go and talk to the people that talk to my customers. They'll know. It's a very natural reaction. It's what a lot of people do, and it's the wrong thing to do. A couple of reasons for that. Reason number one, Chinese whispers. You're never going to get as accurate information from somebody who spoke to somebody as you are from the person themselves. If you've ever actually played Chinese whispers at the dinner table, it's absolutely hilarious. You know, even once you've gone like 6 or 7 people round, it's completely incomprehensible what from what started out. And it's very true when you're doing your research as well. If your information is secondhand, third hand, it's never going to be as accurate as if it came direct from source. Then there's the kind of people that talk to your customers that you might go and talk to. Sales is one that often happens. You know, marketing think, oh, sales are talking about customers all the time. We're going to ask sales what they think. Absolute nightmare. A sales conversation is one of the most unnatural conversations there are, because salespeople, even the very good ones, are in a situation where the person on the other end knows they're being sold to. And so as a general rule, they're not very genuine when they're on those calls. They make excuses. They play hardball when they don't necessarily need to. You know, there's always something going on there that is not, they're very unlikely to open up and go, you know what, here's everything about me, because it gives the other side too much ammunition. So sales conversations not great for research. And similarly, the other big one is customer service. Customer service talk to customers all the time. Maybe they could help us. They really can't. People call customer service as a general rule to get help with something that's not right. Again, you're not getting somebody in their natural frame of mind. You're getting somebody in a state where they're very negative and they're in a real rush to get a solution to whatever issue they've got. They're not going to have the time to give you the information that you want. So it's rough news, but you're going to have to do this yourself. But the good news is that you don't necessarily have to do it in the conventional way. In the bad old days, there was only 2 real ways of doing research. You either got people together in a room and did a focus group and let people talk, or you sent out a survey and people clicked on things and you got a data set. Both those things are completely valid, and if you've got the wherewithal to do them, go for it. But there are other ways to do this. And the way that I always think about research, if I'm kind of doing it on a shoestring or doing it with a difficult audience, is think about, where can I get information from people where they're feeling safe being their most authentic selves? And that will change from audience to audience, but you've got to sort of think about it for your target audience. Where are they their most authentic selves? Is it at an event where what they say is verbal, there's no permanence, and they're among their own tribe, so they feel like they can really sort of let go and tell you what they really think? Or maybe for your audience, it's online, where they've kind of got that distance from people. People don't really know who they are. They're removed from the consequences. Or is it more in a kind of more familiar work setting where they're with their trusted peers? You know, where's ask yourself before you start doing any of this, where do your audience feel safe? Where are they really themselves? And if that answer is in the pub after work with their mates, then maybe you just need to start thinking about what pubs you hang out in. So once we know where we're going to go and find people, we've got to get to the crux of who they really are. We've got to learn how to not just ask them about kind of conventional work stuff. We've got to really get to the heart of what that means. Getting to that stuff can be tricky. It's not something that people naturally automatically want to surrender to you. It's certainly not something that, as a rule, you get through a kind of quantitative survey, because, you know, again, people just go through those and click, 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 click. They're not really engaging at a deep emotional level. So that's why the face-to-face research or the phone research is really important, because you need to develop a rapport with people and get them to trust you to the point where, when you're asking about, you know, so okay, so what happens if you put in that piece of technology and it doesn't work? Oh, well, this, it'll screw up this and this. And what happens then? Oh, my manager will be really annoyed with me. Okay, and what happens if your manager's that mad with you? And you've got to get them to the point where they get to the end game fear, which is, I'm not getting the promotion I'm up for, or I'm going to get fired. And so spending real quality, genuine time with somebody, if you're doing a research interview, plan to spend at least half an hour with that person, ideally longer, but generally people will only give you half an hour, because you're really going to have to spend time digging into the why. Don't always take the first answer that they give you. Really dig a lot deeper. You know, if they say, oh, well, this will happen, and what happens when that happens? Try and keep your questions very neutral, so you're not kind of leading them. Things like the example I just used, and what happens when that happens, or and what does that mean? And just keep it very neutral, so you're not inferring anything for them. Once we've got all that together and we've got our wonderful buyer persona, do you know what we do next? We go negative. So in order to truly understand our lovely buyer persona, we've got to understand who they are. We've also really got to understand who they are not. And this is as important a step as the first bit that we did, defining all of that stuff. So I'm going to pull the list back up of all the things that we are going to find out. So for each of these bullet points, we absolutely need to find out what that is for our buyer persona throughout, but we've also got to have a what's not, you know. So if we've got to understand who qualifies out. So, you know, if their buying decision process, for instance, is you know, get 3 quotes and choose the cheapest, and there's no way you're ever going to be the cheapest, that's an automatic rule out. And so that needs to be built into the picture as well, so we understand who we're not after. And I would probably put as much effort into the rule out criteria as to the rule in criteria, because it's very easy to let ourselves get away with being very general and kind of, oh, well, you know, we might be able to sell to somebody like that, and we might be able to sell to somebody like that. Let's just put them in anyway. And all that does is dilute your marketing firepower, because you're going after somebody who, you know, is probably going to buy from you maybe 2% likelihood of them buying from you, and yet you're going to put as much effort into that person as you are into the person who's 98% likely to buy from you. So whilst it can fit, you get this kind of FOMO thing of like, oh, but if we don't put them in, what if? Absolute waste of time. We are all short of time, short of resource. We've got capped budgets. We want to put all of our efforts in the people that are going to buy, not let ourselves be scared into generalizing. And really don't be afraid to be specific. Now, you may be wondering why on earth I've got a picture of a toilet roll. So imagine you are not in your position. Imagine you're the brand manager of Andrex. Like, everyone needs toilet roll, right? Everyone. Like, surely I can sell Andrex to anyone. Like, it's just toilet roll. Everyone needs it. Not true. In fact, fun fact of the afternoon, 70% of the world doesn't use toilet roll at all. So that's 70% ruled out straight away. So I've taken my 30% that does. Are they all going to use Andrex? Absolutely not. Adrex is very much designed for a certain demographic, certain market. It's actually even something as generic as toilet paper. Your buyer persona would be very, very, very specific. And I can guarantee, having looked at the attendee list for all of you, everything you do is more specific than toilet roll. Because our aim isn't to reach everybody. Our aim is to find and win our own tribe. We've got to focus on finding the people who will buy from us. And this is why we spent so long on this buyer persona prep work, is because this is going to be the fuel that takes us the rest of the way. We've got to understand the person who is going to say yes 98% of the time, inside out, back to front. We've got to have been ruthless in stripping away the people who are, 50-50, or maybe later, or maybe if it's cheap enough, to the people who are absolutely going to say yes. Because once we've done that, once we've really narrowed it down, we can roll the red carpet out to those folks, and we can spend all the time and all the money on making sure that they both convert in the first place and stay. So we know Mandy now. Like, Mandy's our bestie. I'm going on a hen do. Next step, we've got to figure out why Mandy is going to pick you and you alone. And when you do this step, you'll realize quite how utterly critical that buyer persona piece is. Because when you're looking at yourself versus your competitors, you have a bunch of things that, are the same and a bunch of things that are different. How do you know which of those count? It's got to come from that buyer persona work. You've got to understand, when you're looking at your list of unique things, which of those is going to float Mandy's boat, and which of those is she going to go, oh, that's nice, and move on. So the way that I would approach this is to initially, from your research of your competitors, list out everything that is unique about you, and then start to rank those things according to how important they are likely to be to that core buyer persona for you. We're going to try and figure out how our uniqueness addresses the needs of our market, and be super careful here, because it's very easy to then step back into, oh, well, I've got a product and it fixes this business problem. Nobody gives a shit, unfortunately. Sorry. What they really care about are those things that we talked about back at the start. What are the personal motivations? What are the personal fears? How does what we do, and the unique way that we do it, how does that feed into who they really are as people? Because that's what's driving the buying decision. Even in a kind of big corporate business to business world, I hear this all the time. People who you think would make very structured and very logical buying decisions just go, oh, well, actually, no, we're going to go with so and so because we like them, or I'm going with so and so because they do this. And it's still a very, even at the kind of very biggest levels of sort of procurement, it's still a very emotional decision. It's still very much around, how people make them feel, as opposed to what they're actually going to do. Cool. So hopefully by the end of this, we know Mandy inside out, and we know the one thing that we do that's very unique to us that is going to float her boat. So we're ready to start putting pen to paper. Let's do it. How do we take all of that stuff and make it into killer messaging that's absolutely going to get you to crush the results on your next campaign? So, step one, we've got to sell the dream or nix the nightmare. So we're going to figure out what is our offering doing. Is it, is it going to get Mandy her promotion, or is it going to stop her getting fired? What's the thing that she's really worried about or really excited about, and how are we going to do that? Because all of your customers, it doesn't matter, like, we've got quite a diverse sign up list here, and it genuinely doesn't matter whether you're selling a box of wine or a bank account, they don't want a box of wine or a bank account. They want how you make them feel. They want what you're going to help them achieve. Nobody goes out going, oh, you know, I they don't do it as a conscious thing. They don't go, oh, I'm going to go and buy a box of wine because it's going to make me feel great on a Friday night, or I'm going to swap bank accounts because I'd feel safer with them because the other people are connected to somebody I've heard something nasty about. That's not how it works. But that is the ultimate reality of the decision. It's got nothing to do with wanting a particular thing. It's what that thing enables them to do. So figure out what you're doing. You know, what are you doing? Is what particular goal, ambition, problem, challenge, fear are you going to tap into? And then once you've figured out what that need is, do you remember back in the buyer persona bit, we said we've got to capture how they speak, we've got to capture the language they use. This is why. Because just identifying a problem and saying I can fix your problem is one thing. If you're able to speak to that problem in the language that the person uses, that's when the lights go on. That's when the hair stands up on the back of the neck and they go, oh my goodness, yeah. Got to be in their language. We've got to use the words that they are likely to use, because that's the bit that's going to make it really resonate. That's the bit that stops you sounding like a Facebook snake oil merchant, you know, sign up to my program, you can be a millionaire on your Ferrari like me, that kind of thing, is because you actually speak the language that they speak. You sound like one of them. Then we get onto our uniqueness. It's all very well for us to say we're unique. Everybody does. We've got to prove it. What's the evidence that we can give that we are truly unique and that that's going to work? I'll give you an example, bring that to life. We have a client who they're fourth in their market, which is one of the worst places to be in the history of the universe, because people are generally lazy. They get 3 quotes for a project and automatically ask the 3 biggest players in the market. That sucks if you're position 4. We needed to find them a way of proving the fact that they were unique enough to make it into that 3. How did we do it? Well, we did quite a lot of work figuring out what their uniqueness was, but well, our market, or their market anyway, told us that, you know, that it was all about kind of reliable performance over time. And initially we thought, well, that is that a product thing? It wasn't. All the products were pretty much the same from all the different competitors. What was different was the way those products were serviced during their lifetime. And our client happened to be the only one out of those top 4 who did their own servicing. Everybody else contracted it out. And at that point, we are the only major supplier of this technology who services their own kit. So you're guaranteed to get an engineer who knows what they're doing within 24 hours of you having a problem. Right, okay. At that point, you're automatically the 3rd quote on the table, because nobody else can do that. And it's been transformative for their marketing. So we've got into their heads. We figured out the bit that's kind of making them go, or we're speaking to their needs in their language. We've proven how we're unique. What next? Final step is providing a low risk way to experience that uniqueness, because people are naturally cautious, and the one place you tend to lose them, even if you've kind of held the attention all the way from kind of I can fix your problem through to and this is how I'm going to fix it and this is why it's unique, is when you ask for commitment, because generally people ask for too much too soon. It's a little bit like you know, when if anyone on the call is single or can remember being single, you're out in a bar, somebody offers to buy you a drink, that's all right. Somebody gets down on one knee and pops out an engagement ring, that's terrifying. And unfortunately, we do this all the time as marketers. We go straight for the engagement ring and we don't bother with the drink. And one of the most important things within your kind of your messaging and your campaign structure is only to ask for the thing that you can ask for at the moment that you can get it. And that could be frustrating because obviously we've all got targets, we've all got stuff that we need to get done, we need to get people through our lead funnels and across to sales and wherever else we need them to go. But you'll blow it if you ask for too much too soon. Have a real good think about what is it I can do to show, let them have a little taste of that uniqueness. One of my clients is absolutely brilliant at this because she knew that she operates in an industry that doesn't have a very great reputation. It's full of people who promise the earth and don't do anything. And so she designed this trial, and it was absolutely ludicrous. Like compared to I think probably represented like a 1% of her typical pricing investment. It was insane. But what it did was got her in front of the people that mattered and got the opportunity to go, look, we said we're different. Look, we really, really are. And at that point, they're away. They're signing 7-figure contracts and going, yeah, we're cool. And by taking that risk and taking that hit on a very low investment trial, she takes the pain away. They're sort of looking at it thinking, oh, it's 700 quid. What's 700 quid? That's nothing. Like, why would I not? And it takes away the fear, because if it'd be quite easy for her to go in and go, right, well, our packages start at 150 grand. At that point, people are going, oh, that's a reasonable chunk of my budget to take a flyer on somebody I've never met before. Very important that you guys work with whoever it is in your business who can authorize this stuff to make sure you can give these tasters. If you're service led, very, very easy. Like, you're demonstrating expertise, experience. We all do content marketing. There's lots of easy ways to do this. If it's product, a demo is one way, but people hate demos. Might have to be a little bit more creative as to how do I actually give them a little bit of this experience. Can I, in the instance of tech products, like, can I send them a live graph of like all the, our percentage of uptime for the last 3 years? What is it that I can do to give them that little taste of whatever I've promised? If you can do all of those things, if you can create an absolutely kick-ass, super detailed buyer persona that really, really, really gets to the heart of who somebody truly is. And in case anybody's, I should have said this earlier actually, in case anybody's been frantically scribbling, you will have the slides and the recording afterwards to go through that full list to see what's in your buyer persona. If you can do that, if you can identify the things that are really unique about you that are going to resonate with that particular person, and then you can structure your messaging in the way that we've just talked about, selling the dream, speaking their language, proving you're unique, and providing a low risk way to experience that uniqueness. You're no longer dealing with a crowded market where you're one of hundreds, thousands, millions. Suddenly you are the only choice, because what you've done is you've narrowed your market down to the people who really are going to buy your product. And you've spoken to them in a way that shows them that they're not just a number, they're a human being, that you really, really understand them. And you haven't made the bar so high that it's scary to jump over. All of those things, when they work together, you'd be amazed what you can do conversions wise from that, and how that's going to be absolutely transformative for your results. So, always like to finish with a few little freebies before a Q&A. So this is a little bit like kind of fastest finger first. My first little freebie, there are only 5 of, and it will be the 5 quickest people. So I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll tell you what you've got to do. I am going to do a one-to-one session with 5 people where I go through a piece of messaging, be that, some campaign assets, be it a website, be it a brochure, something that's really important to you that you absolutely have to get right. And I will spend anything up to an hour with you thrashing out exactly what that should look like and making sure that you really understand how all of the stuff that we've done today applies to you. And so that's 5 people who are the quickest to email me. Go. That was a bit mean, I know, but there you go. So 5 people quickest to email emma@wearegenius.co.uk. You will be the lucky recipient of a free session where we go through something that's important to you and we tear it apart and we make sure that it is absolutely the best that it can be and that it's making money for your business. Right. And then I don't like leaving people out. It sucks. So if you weren't quite quick enough to get your email off, everybody can use our brand benchmarking tool. This is something that we spent absolutely ages putting together. It's based around the Riches framework that we use to build brands into valuable, saleable propositions. It's your input to this is fairly easy. You just rattle through a list of multiple choice questions. Takes about 5 minutes tops to do. But what that does is produces a load of individual scores across the different areas of the framework and provides some custom advice as to how to close up your scores where you have potentially got some weaknesses. I would absolutely say JFDI, like it's a no-brainer. It provides loads of really helpful information. Just give you a couple of seconds to grab that QR code or that link if you want, and then we will open up for questions if there are any, and if not, then I have done my job and everything should be simple. So if you have got questions, fire away. And whilst we are waiting, I am going to launch a little poll. Actually, pop that list back up so that make it easier. There we go. Right. Just interested to know how much of the buyer persona mega list is currently in your buyer persona. Let me know. I love doing these. I'm secretly addicted to polls. Hannah will know. I used polls extensively during our remote Christmas celebration. There's just something really exciting about it. It's like sort of research in live action, and you don't never know quite where it's going to go. It's quite good fun. Cool. So 50% in at around 20% of that, and then 25% at 50% and 80%. Excellent. Nice one. Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. Oh no, I've got a question. Hang on. Thanks, Alison. How can you open a cold conversation with somebody to understand them better? I would always start with the safe stuff. Start with the stuff that's at the top of this list. You know, sort of. You know, okay. So, Mandy, how many years have you worked in marketing? Okay, where did you start? Have you moved industries? You know, start with really nice, safe stuff that people are kind of fine with. You can't go. It's a little bit like the CTA thing. You can't go for the jugular straight away because that's terrifying. You know, if I met Hannah in the street and went, so Hannah, what was the last thing that made you cry and why? Like that's terrifying. But if I've spent the time chatting to her and getting to know her, you know, it's much more likely after half an hour that she's going to tell me what her real problems are in her role and what she's genuinely worried about happening. She like don't ever open with the scary stuff, for sure. But thank you for your question, Alison, because it's a tricky one. Like, and I think it's much like any kind of phone work. The more you practice, the better you get at it. And if there's not any more for any more, I will wish you all a good day. Thank you very much for attending. Much appreciated. And have a good rest of your day.